The day the aliens came was a Tuesday. Because of course it was a Tuesday. Tuesdays were universally acknowledged as the most disappointing day of the week. Not quite Monday enough to complain about. Not close enough to Friday to celebrate. Jack Thornton was mopping up a coffee spill in NASA's mission control when the first transmission came through. At 43, with a military career that had ended with a dishonorable discharge for excessive creative interpretation of orders, Jack had found his niche as the guy who cleaned up other people's messes. Literal messes these days. Attention, inhabitants of Earth, boomed a voice that sounded like someone gargling marbles while falling downstairs. This is High Commander Krell of the Voraxian Empire. We come in peace. Jack snorted. Yeah, and I'm here because I love the smell of disinfectant in the morning. The NASA scientists ignored him, as usual. They were too busy freaking out about the massive ship that had just appeared in orbit, shaped like a giant metal squid having an existential crisis. 3 days later, the Voraxians landed on the White House lawn. They looked like someone had tried to crossbreed a praying mantis with a business suit, complete with what appeared to be neckties but were actually breathing apparatuses. Their leader, High Commander Krell, had more medals on his exoskeleton than a North Korean general at a military parade. We bring greetings from the Galactic Council, Krell announced to the assembled world leaders and press. His translator device gave him the voice of a game show host. And an opportunity for Earth to join the civilized universe. The president smiled nervously. We're honored by your visit and open to diplomatic relations. Splendid. Krell's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. Then you'll have no objection to signing this standard treaty of integration. Jack, who'd been brought along to clean up after the military dogs that had swept the area for explosives, watched from the sidelines as the president was handed a tablet with alien script. It just says we acknowledge your sovereignty and agree to cultural exchange, the alien ambassador Vryn explained smoothly. Standard procedure. The president signed. Jack didn't trust the aliens. Maybe it was the way their compound eyes never seemed to blink, or maybe it was the fact that they'd accidentally vaporized a commercial airliner during their approach, calling it a navigation error. He was right not to trust them. Within 24 hours, massive harvesting ships appeared in the skies above every major city. The treaty had apparently included fine print granting the Voraxians complete ownership of Earth's resources, including its inhabitants. You humans are now classified as a Class D species, Krell announced in a worldwide broadcast. This designation means you are intelligent enough to be useful laborers but not advanced enough for full citizenship. Congratulations. Many species are simply exterminated. The world's militaries scrambled jets and launched missiles. The Voraxians seemed amused. Their ships generated some kind of energy field that turned weapons back on their launchers. Within hours, Earth's defenses were decimated. We expect full compliance within 3 planetary rotations, Krell continued pleasantly. Resistance is, as your charming Earth phrase goes, futile, but also unnecessary. Many species live quite comfortable lives as servants. Some even receive recreational time allotments once per lunar cycle. The governments of Earth capitulated immediately. What choice did they have? The only condition they managed to negotiate was a 1-week transition period to prepare their populations. Jack watched the news from the bar at NASA, where the scientists were getting collectively drunk. So that's it, he muttered, nursing a black coffee. We're just giving up? Nobody answered. They were too busy drafting their surrender speeches. 3 days after the surrender announcement, Jack was assigned to clean the Voraxian diplomatic quarters established in NASA's main complex. The aliens were using it as a secondary command center while their primary base was being constructed in what used to be Yellowstone National Park. Don't touch anything that looks important, his supervisor warned. Just empty the trash and mop the floors. And for God's sake, don't talk to them. Jack saluted sarcastically. Yes, sir. Invisible and mute. That's me. The Voraxian quarters smelled like a combination of mothballs and cinnamon. Jack tried breathing through his mouth as he emptied their strange, pulsating waste receptacles. He was just finishing when his thermos of coffee slipped from his utility belt and spilled across the floor. Damn it, he muttered, reaching for his mop. That's when he noticed the strange hissing sound. A Voraxian officer had entered the room and was now backing away, its compound eyes fixed on the puddle of coffee. Containment breach. Toxic substance detected. It shrieked, its translator making it sound like a panicked game show host announcing the wrong winner. Before Jack could process what was happening, alarms blared. 3 more Voraxians rushed in wearing what appeared to be hazmat suits over their already protective exoskeletons. "What's the problem?" Jack asked, genuinely confused. "It's just coffee." The word sent them into another panic. The Class 7 neurotoxin. The human admits to deploying it. Jack was promptly stunned with some kind of electrical device and dragged to an interrogation room. That's where he met Dr. Ellie Novak, a xenobiologist who had been brought in to explain his attack. "I'm telling you, it wasn't an attack," Jack insisted as Ellie studied him through thick glasses. "I spilled my damn coffee." "Fascinating," she mumbled. Not to him, but to her tablet. Their physiology must be caffeine intolerant to an extreme degree. Even the vapor appears to trigger anaphylactic responses. "English, Doc?" Jack prompted. Ellie looked up as if noticing him for the first time. "They're allergic to coffee. Deathly allergic. Like 1 drop could potentially kill them." Jack blinked. "You're kidding." "I never kid about xenobiology," she replied seriously. Then, after a beat, "That's a joke. I'm trying to be more personable. My last performance review suggested I have the emotional range of a calculator." "Despite everything," Jack laughed. "So our planet is being invaded by aliens who can be taken down by a Starbucks?" A slow smile spread across Ellie's face. "It appears so. And based on their reaction, I don't think they've encountered this weakness before." They were interrupted by a Voraxian entering the room. "The human will be processed for labor assignment," it announced. "Actually," Ellie interjected, "I need this specimen for my research. High Commander Krell authorized me to study human physiological responses to captivity." The Voraxian seemed uncertain. "Is this registered in the system?" Of course, Ellie lied smoothly. "File XBTR 7732. You can check yourself, though it might reflect poorly on your efficiency metrics to question a direct order." The alien hesitated, then nodded. "Proceed. But ensure the specimen is properly restrained." After it left, Jack stared at Ellie. That was impressive. "They're obsessed with hierarchy and paperwork," she explained. "I've been studying them. They classify everything, including their own people. It's how they make sense of the universe. And where does Earth fit in their classification? Class D planet. Bottom of the heap. We're considered barely above animals." Jack snorted. "Their mistake." "Indeed." Ellie leaned forward. "Listen, I have access to their systems through my research credentials. They've been cataloging Earth's resources, including our food and beverages. Coffee isn't just harmful to them, it's classified as a Class 7 neurotoxin, the highest danger rating in their system." Jack's mind raced with possibilities. "So what you're saying is—" "What I'm saying is that the most ordinary thing on Earth might be our best weapon." Ellie's eyes gleamed behind her glasses. "And they have no idea." "This is the stupidest plan I've ever heard," Commander Hayes declared, crossing his arms. The former Air Force officer had been Jack's commanding officer years ago, before the incident in Balakistan that neither of them ever discussed. "You want to fight an advanced alien civilization with coffee?" They were meeting in the basement of Perky Pete's, a coffee shop whose owner, Mira Rodriguez, had enthusiastically joined their cause after the Voraxians had declared all coffee shops would be converted to nutrient distribution centers. "It's not stupid if it works," Jack argued. "And Dr. Novak's tests confirm it does." Ellie nodded, pushing her glasses up her nose. "Even diluted coffee causes severe respiratory distress. At full concentration, a single cup could incapacitate an entire squad." "Plus," added Dex Wong, a former NSA hacker they'd recruited. I've been in their systems. These guys are crazy organized but have zero creativity. Everything follows protocols. They literally cannot comprehend doing something that isn't in their manuals. Mira, arranging coffee beans by roast level on the table, looked up. So we're basically dealing with cosmic bureaucrats with bug spray allergies? Precisely, Ellie confirmed. Commander Hayes sighed deeply. So what's the actual plan? We can't just throw coffee at an entire invasion force. Jack grinned. Actually, we kind of can. The plan was both simple and absurd. The Voraxians had established a processing center at the local convention center, where humans were being assessed for labor assignments. Using Ellie's research credentials, they would infiltrate the facility. X would hack into the environmental systems. Mira had prepared what she called her special brew, a concentrated coffee essence that was strong enough to make even caffeine-addicted humans jittery. If this works, Jack explained, we cause enough confusion to access their communication array. Then we broadcast what we know to the rest of the world. And if it doesn't work? Hayes asked. Jack shrugged. Then we'll be the first humans assigned to the dilithium mines of Rigel 7, or whatever. There's no dilithium or any Rigel system, Ellie corrected automatically. That's Star Trek. Not the point, Doc. The infiltration started smoothly enough. Ellie walked in with her research credentials, escorting her test subjects. The Voraxians barely looked at them, busy processing the long lines of dejected humans. It was when they reached the central processing area that things went sideways, literally. X tripped. The backpack containing the coffee essence containers burst open, spraying brown liquid across the floor. A nearby Voraxian screeched in alarm. Containment breach. Class 7 neurotoxin detected. Chaos erupted. Voraxians scrambled over each other trying to escape the spreading puddle. Some collapsed, their breathing apparatuses making horrific wheezing sounds. Well, Jack muttered. So much for the subtle approach. Hayes, ever the tactician, immediately pivoted. New plan. Mira, start spraying the rest of the essence into the air vents. X, still get to that terminal. Jack, Dr. Novak create a diversion. What kind of diversion? Ellie asked nervously. Jack grinned, pulling out his backup thermos. The loud kind. He unscrewed the cap and flung the contents toward the main security station. The Voraxian station there collapsed immediately, triggering alarms throughout the facility. Humans being processed began to realize something was happening. When they saw the feared alien overlords writhing in apparent agony, a cheer went up. Broadcast is ready. Dex called from a terminal. Jack rushed over, grabbing the communication device. People of Earth, he announced, his voice transmitting to every screen in the facility and beyond, the invincible Voraxians have a weakness. Coffee. Regular, everyday coffee. Spread the word. Fight back. What? As the message went out, Voraxian reinforcements arrived wearing full environmental suits. Surrender, humans. This resistance is futile and against galactic law. Mira, who had emptied her containers into the ventilation system, snorted. I've dealt with entitled customers before. You guys ain't special. What none of them expected was for the environmental suits to start malfunctioning. Apparently, coffee essence was corrosive to whatever material they used. As they retreated from the facility, Jack couldn't help but laugh at the sight of highly advanced aliens being driven back by what was essentially a beverage spill. You know what's going to happen now, right? Hayes said grimly as they escaped into the night. They're going to be really, really mad, Jack replied. No, Hayes corrected. They're going to be scared. And that makes us dangerous. The Voraxian response was swift and unprecedented. 3 days after what extranet news channels were calling the Coffee Rebellion, a new ship arrived in Earth orbit. Unlike the squid-like Voraxian vessels, this one was sleek and prismatic, changing colors as it caught the light. That's not a Voraxian ship, Ellie remarked, looking at satellite imagery Dex had hacked from NASA that's Galactic Council design. They had established a new base of operations in an abandoned missile silo that Hayes somehow had access to. None of them asked questions about that. "So what does that mean for us?" Jack asked, nursing a cup of hot chocolate. Nobody was drinking coffee anymore. It was too valuable as a weapon. "It means," Ellie said slowly, "that we got their attention." The ship dispatched a single shuttle to Earth. Instead of landing at a government facility, it touched down right outside their missile silo. "How the hell did they find us?" Hayes demanded, reaching for a weapon. Dex looked sheepish. "They might have tracked my hack. Their tech is way beyond anything I've dealt with before." Before they could decide whether to fight or flee, a voice came over their radio system. "Attention, human resistance. This is Counselor Enslave of the Galactic Mediation Corps. I am here on a diplomatic mission. I am unarmed and request peaceful dialogue." "Should we trust them?" Mira asked, holding her spray bottle of coffee essence. Jack shrugged. One way to find out. Counselor Enslave was not what any of them expected. Unlike the insectoid Voraxians, Enslave appeared almost feline, with iridescent fur and forearms. He wore what looked like a very comfortable bathrobe with official-looking insignia. "Greetings," the alien said, voice surprisingly melodious. "I must say, you humans have created quite the bureaucratic nightmare. Do you have any idea how much paperwork is involved when a Class D species resists classification?" Sorry?" Jack offered uncertainly. Enslave waved a hand dismissively. "Don't apologize. It's the most interesting thing to happen in my division for 17 cycles. I've been stuck reviewing mineral rights disputes between silicon-based lifeforms. Do you know how long silicon beings can argue about the same rock? Millennia." The humans exchanged confused glances. "I'm here," Enslave continued, settling onto a chair without waiting for an invitation, "because the Voraxian Empire has filed a formal complaint against Earth for deploying banned chemical weapons." "That's rich," Hayes snorted. "They're trying to enslave our entire planet." "Yes, well, that's perfectly legal under Galactic Code 37B, Enslave said apologetically. "Class D planets are available for resource appropriation." The Voraxians followed proper protocol, filing all required forms in triplicate. "So what? The galaxy just lets bullies take whatever they want if they fill out the right paperwork?" Jack demanded. Enslave's ears perked up. "Essentially, yes. You understand galactic politics already." He paused, though the term bullies isn't in the official lexicon. "We prefer resource allocation specialists." Jack rubbed his temples. "This is insane." "What I don't understand," Ellie interjected, "is why coffee would be considered a banned weapon. It's just a beverage." "Ah." Enslave seemed delighted by the question. "That's the fascinating part. You see, caffeine compounds are indeed registered as Class 7 neurotoxins, but only for certain species. The database lists them as extremely rare, found only on 2 planets in the uncharted regions. The Voraxians never expected to encounter them here, on a Class D world." "So what happens now?" Jack asked. Enslave pulled out what looked like a crystal tablet. "Well, technically I'm here to investigate both claims, the Voraxian accusation of chemical warfare and your weight." He blinked all 4 of his eyes. "Who exactly is your planetary representative to the Council?" The humans looked at each other. "That would be me, I guess," Jack said finally. Enslave tapped something on his tablet. "And your official title?" Jack thought quickly. "Supreme Coffee Commander of Earth?" "Perfect." Enslave typed this in. "Now we can proceed with formal arbitration protocols." And just like that, through a combination of bureaucratic confusion and Jack's quick thinking, Earth gained its first official galactic representative. The fact that he was a janitor who had made up his title on the spot was, apparently, irrelevant to intergalactic law. "Now then," Enslave continued pleasantly, "shall we discuss the terms of your species' continued existence?" Jack stood before the Galactic Council Subcommittee on Planetary Classification Appeals. trying not to fidget in the ridiculously uncomfortable universal humanoid accommodation chair they'd provided. It felt like sitting on a geometry problem. The committee consisted of representatives from 6 different species, none of whom looked remotely comfortable with the situation. The Voraxian delegate, a high-ranking official named Vrex, kept as far from Jack as possible, clearly terrified that he might be concealing coffee somewhere on his person. Supreme Coffee Commander Thornton began the chairperson, a gelatinous being that communicated through color pulses translated by a small device. Your petition to reclassify Earth from Class D to Class B is highly unusual. No species has ever jumped 2 classification levels in a single appeal. With all due respect, Jack replied, I believe there's been a mistake in our initial classification. Ellie had spent days coaching him on what to say. Their plan was simple but audacious: convince the Galactic Council that humans were too dangerous to be treated as a subordinate species. The Voraxian assessment was conducted according to protocol. Vrex objected, mandibles clicking nervously. Humans have no unified planetary government, limited space travel capabilities, and only achieved digital communication in the last century. That's true, Jack conceded. But your protocols failed to account for certain unique human characteristics. He nodded to Dex, who activated the presentation they'd prepared. The screen behind Jack lit up with images that made several council members recoil: humans engaging in extreme sports, eating contests, reality television challenges. Humans don't just adapt to environments, we actively seek out challenges and dangers for entertainment, Jack explained. We climb mountains because they're there. We jump out of perfectly functional aircraft. We eat substances that cause pain because we like the flavor. Surely these are isolated aberrations, one council member suggested. Jack grinned. Computer, show global hot sauce consumption statistics. The numbers appeared, causing several councilors to emit sounds of distress. You intentionally consume capsaicin compounds for pleasure? Zexlac asked, fascinated. Those are used as riot control agents on 17 systems. And that's just the beginning, Jack continued. He pulled out his secret weapon, a data drive Ellie had prepared containing Earth's memes, dad jokes, and reality TV highlights. This represents a small fraction of our cultural output. I particularly direct your attention to something we call Florida Man stories. The council chambers erupted in chaos as the presentation played. Some councilors were clearly horrified, others fascinated. One appeared to be laughing uncontrollably, though with their physiology, it was hard to tell. Enough. The chairperson pulsed in alarmed colors. We've seen sufficient evidence. Then there's our adaptability, Jack pressed his advantage. Humans can survive in environments from Arctic to desert. We recover from injuries that would be fatal to most species. And we have these. He pointed to his pinky finger. A completely redundant digit we keep around just because. That's actually not true, Ellie muttered from the gallery. Jack ignored her. He was on a roll. But most importantly, well, he concluded, humans never, ever give up. The coffee resistance? That was just the beginning. Even if you wipe out 99% of us, that remaining 1% will dedicate their lives to making you regret it. And we're really, really good at holding grudges. Some of us still haven't gotten over sports matches from a century ago. The council called for a recess. As they filed out, Zexlac approached Jack with what appeared to be respect. You know, the counselor remarked, I've been reviewing your planet's historical records. You humans have a fascinating pattern. When faced with overwhelming odds, you tend to prevail through what can only be described as strategic insanity. Jack nodded solemnly. We call it winging it. A powerful philosophical concept, Zexlac agreed. When the council returned, their decision was unprecedented. Earth would be provisionally reclassified as Class B, with special notation regarding human unpredictability. The Voraxians would immediately cease all harvesting operations. However, the chairperson added, given your species' demonstrated potential for chaos, the council will establish a monitoring outpost in your system. That seems fair, Jack agreed. trying not to smile too broadly. As news spread across the galaxy about the dangerous, coffee-wielding humans who had successfully challenged the Voraxian Empire, something unexpected happened. Representatives from other subjugated species began reaching out to Earth, seeking alliances, trade agreements, and most surprisingly, cultural exchanges. Turns out, Mira observed as they celebrated back on Earth, the galaxy was getting pretty tired of those bureaucratic bullies. "I prefer resource allocation specialists," Jack replied with a grin. 6 months after Earth's reclassification, the Voraxians made one last desperate play. A fleet of 30 warships appeared at the edge of the solar system, transmission blaring, prepare for recategorization, and immediate resource extraction. Jack, now serving as Earth's official, if still somewhat unofficial, ambassador to the Galactic Council, sat in the hastily established extraterrestrial relations office, formerly NASA's cafeteria, and sighed. They really don't learn, do they? Ellie, now his chief scientific advisor, shook her head. Their rigid hierarchical thinking makes it almost impossible for them to accept defeat by a lesser species. It violates their entire worldview. "So what's the plan?" asked Hayes, who had been appointed Earth's first space defense commander. "We've got coffee-based weapons now, but not enough to take on 30 warships." Jack leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. "We don't need to fight them, we just need to scare them." The plan they devised was pure human audacity. While the Voraxian fleet approached, Earth made a very public show of welcoming diplomatic envoys from 7 different galactic species, including 3 that the Voraxians had historically avoided confronting. "You're bluffing," High Commander Krell snarled when Jack finally accepted his transmission. "Those species would never ally with primitive humans." "Really?" Jack raised an eyebrow. "Maybe you should check the interstellar markets. Specifically, the trading volume on something called—" "What was it again, Dr. Novak?" "Coffee futures," Ellie supplied. "Up 8,000% across 3 galactic quadrants." It was true. In the months since their initial victory, Earth had begun exporting coffee carefully sealed and labeled as Class 7 controlled substance at astronomical prices. The fact that it was classified as a deadly neurotoxin to some species only made it more appealing to others as a luxury item. "But that's not all we're exporting," Jack continued. "Tell me, Commander Krell, have you heard of something called reality television?" Behind him, a screen displayed viewing statistics for Keeping Up with the Kardashians, which had somehow become the most watched entertainment program in 18 star systems. "Or perhaps you've encountered these?" Jack held up a smartphone displaying dancing cat videos. "Our communication networks are flooded with requests for more of these. We can barely keep up with demand." The true secret to Earth's new galactic influence wasn't military power or advanced technology. It was culture: chaotic, unpredictable, addictive human culture. Memes, reality shows, cat videos, coffee, hot sauce, and music had spread through the galactic community like a benevolent virus. "The Galactic Council has officially recognized Earth as a cultural heritage asset," Jack informed the increasingly agitated Voraxian commander. "Any action against us would be—" How did they phrase it, Ellie? "A violation of Section 47J regarding the preservation of unique civilizational outputs," she quoted. Jack nodded gravely. Apparently there'd be a lot of paperwork involved. You know how the Council feels about unexpected paperwork. The Voraxian fleet retreated within hours. Unwilling to risk confrontation with Earth's newfound allies gained not through military might but through coffee diplomacy and Netflix subscriptions. 1 year later, Jack stood on the observation deck of Friendship Station, Earth's first orbital diplomatic facility. Beside him, Zexlac sipped carefully from a tiny cup. "I still don't understand how you can drink this knowing what it does to some species," the counselor remarked. "That's humanity for you," Jack replied. "One species' neurotoxin is another's morning pick-me-up." Below them, Earth gleamed blue and green. No longer a Class D planet ripe for exploitation, but a cultural and diplomatic powerhouse that had fundamentally altered the galactic balance of power. "You know what the most requested Earth export is now?" Jack asked. Besides coffee and reality TV? Your mating ritual application. The Tinder yes? Zixlac's fur rippled in what Jack had learned was amusement. 17 species have adapted it for their reproduction protocols. Jack laughed. God help the galaxy. Indeed, Zixlac agreed. Though I must confess, I've become rather addicted to your dad jokes. They make no logical sense, which is perhaps why they're so fascinating. Jack grinned. Why don't scientists trust atoms? I don't know. Why? Anything. Because they make up everything. Zixlac's translation device struggled momentarily before the counselor burst into color-pulsing laughter. Extraordinary. The linguistic paradox creates a neural response that's quite pleasant. From accidental janitor to galactic diplomat, Jack reflected on the strange journey that had led him here. Earth had gone from the brink of enslavement to becoming the galaxy's cultural center in less than 2 years, all because of spilled coffee and humanity's knack for chaotic innovation. The Voraxians had tried to enslave Earth. Now every species from the Andromeda Arm to the Cygnus Reach clamored for human exports, human entertainment, and human unpredictability. They didn't bow out of fear of coffee weapons, but out of desperate need for the next season of whatever reality show had captured their multifaceted eyes. Humanity hadn't just survived first contact, they'd turned it into a streaming service with premium subscription options. And somewhere in a dusty filing cabinet in the Galactic Council archives, Earth's official classification had been updated once more. Class A. Approach with caution. Unpredictable, but oddly addictive.